Manchester United 2, Leeds United 0. Manchester United's pre-season kicks off with a victory in Oslo in Norway. And it's always really difficult, isn't it, to kind of dissect pre-season matches. It's always very challenging because you can't read too much into them. You can see impressive performances and maybe not so impressive performances. You can see things that work and other things that don't work. But overall, I think Erik ten Hag will be fairly happy with what he saw today. Of course, you had debuts for the likes of Mason Mount. You had returns to action for the likes of Lisandro Martinez. And what you also had in the second half was actually a really impressive and encouraging performance from a bunch of youngsters and a bunch of kids from the academy as well. Erik ten Hag has actually spoken after the game, suggesting that next week's game, of course, we've got a week today in Edinburgh against Lyon. I had thought previously, because the international players are going to be returning on Saturday, that maybe more of those international players are going to be involved next Wednesday, but he said maybe not actually, because he wants them to have more time, more training time, and also more time to build themselves up, because United played so many games last season. So maybe we're going to actually see this group of players again, most likely, play in Edinburgh next week against Lyon. So a really interesting game. Now, obviously, the team that was started in the first half was the more senior of the lot, featuring the likes of Tom Heaton, Lisandro Martinez, Rafael Varane, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. You had Jadon Sancho in there, Mason Mount, Ahmad. And the first half, I think the best way to sum up the first half is that it was very much reminiscent of Manchester United last season in the essence of good build-up play, good play through the middle, but no real substance of anything up front. And I think the biggest standouts to me in that first half was the midfield, actually. I thought Hannibal was terrific. I thought he was really, really impressive. I know that people talk about his temperament and his aggression, but I loved it in the first half. I think the fact he got booked by that referee was ridiculous in a pre-season friendly of all things, and it wasn't for a terrible tackle. It was for pulling the shirt, I think it was. And there were plenty of tackles in the second half that were far worse, and the referee did nothing. Almost like he remembered, oh wait, yes, it's a pre-season friendly. I'm not supposed to be giving out yellow cards. But what I really did like about Hannibal in that first half was his intensity and his ability and desire to win the ball back. I thought he and Mainoo a couple of times pressured players from both sides, won the ball back, and had we had a bit more across the front three, we would have scored goals. I think goals were there for the taking in the first half had we had a bit more up front. So was really impressed by Hannibal. Mainoo played as the lone six, sort of the deepest midfielder, and I thought that we know that there's something there with this kid, but I think he really showed it. I think you can see how much he's developed in just 12 months. This is a guy that is developing physically, I think technically. A year of being on the periphery and training with the first team a few times, maybe being in a couple of first team squads here and there, getting some very, very, very select minutes at points last year. You're already starting to see the development in him. There was a couple of times, particularly again in that first half, where he played when I think at one point he was surrounded by 3 Leeds players and he manages to win the foul. He just looked tidy. A couple of, maybe sloppy touches here and there, but I was really impressed by him. Mason Mount made his unofficial Manchester United debut, and particularly in the first sort of 20 to 30 minutes in that first half, he looked really, really sharp. I think you saw everything that Ten Hag wants from him and is going to be expecting of him going forward. Not only the way that he was winning the ball back, he was all over the pitch. He was deep in his own half. He was high up on the other end of the pitch as well, trying to create things. There was one ball he played into Ahmad that was really, really impressive, just right through the Leeds defence. It was actually past, I think it was the left back, and United nearly scored from it. That was impressive too. And also, he nearly could have scored had he been maybe been a bit better with his chip of the goalkeeper, but I thought he looked impressive in that first half. In terms of negatives of the first half, you would just say sort of across that front three, Jadon Sancho played as a false 9. Clearly, he's not comfortable playing as a false 9, and the sheer lack of us having a number 9 in that team is so obvious. I mean, again, we created some chances, but no real cutting edge. Ahmad on the right-hand side, I thought did well, looked lively, wanted to cut in on his left foot a lot. Kind of a bit reminiscent of Anthony, but I could say maybe there was a bit more determination to move the ball forward than maybe Anthony would do usually. But again, it's pre-season. I don't want to criticise players or praise them too much or anything like that. I know people are going to say, Jadon Sancho, he's nothing, he's rubbish, terrible again. I think if we had seen him playing off the left-hand side or the right-hand side, there maybe would have been a bit of a different performance there. So I'm not going to be too critical of that. As far as I mentioned, the centre-backs I thought looked okay. Varane maybe a little bit rusty. I was actually very impressed by Alvaro Fernandez. Had a really successful loan spell at Preston North End last year. Played over 40 times there. Got Young Player of the Year. And looks really technical. Was a really good inverted fullback, I thought, in that first half. So definitely a positive from that. Second half is where we got the goals. And the youngsters came on and they shone. I was concerned because Leeds brought on senior players in that second half. They brought on the likes of Luke Ayling and Patrick Bamford up front, and it must be said, I thought Bennett and Fish absolutely handled Bamford no problem as the centre back pair. So I thought they should be very proud of themselves. They were excellent, but it was really that front three in the second half. You had the likes of Emeran, Shoreteri, and also Hugel up front that I thought did really, really well. Obviously, Emeran will take quite a bit of the plaudits because he gets a goal and an assist. He gets the first goal, gets an assist for the second one. Just looked tricky, looked energetic, bit rangy, isn't he? And then cuts inside onto his left foot and gets the goal, puts it past the goalkeeper. And then Hugel as well as the centre forward. I was saying in the game next week in Edinburgh, we're not going to have a number 9. We're not going to have a number 9 there because Anthony Martial, you would think, probably isn't going to be fit and available by that point. And honestly, if that's the case, then you would say actually Hugel scored a goal today, and just you can tell when a centre forward is playing as a number 9. And by that I mean they make runs that a striker should be making. It's second nature to them. They know what to do. They know when to hit the channels. They know when to come short and hold up the ball. And just having someone that was somewhat familiar with that position, I think would benefit everyone else involved. So I'd say next week, if we don't have Martial back and you don't have your Rashfords or anything like that by that point, start Hugel. Because Jadon Sancho is going to get more out of playing on the left-hand side or the right-hand side than he is playing as a false 9. So I'd say start Hugel. In terms of those other youngsters that maybe have, helped themselves get into the team, I do want to talk about Kovar too, because in a couple of the transfer views that we've been doing recently, there's been so much talk, hasn't there? Been about goalkeepers, De Gea leaving, Henderson leaving, Onana coming in, possibly Suzuki coming in as the number 2. Of course, Tom Heaton started today, but the expectation is he's going to probably be the number 3 next season for Manchester United. And a lot of people have been saying, well, Kovar, he had a really successful loan period last year. He actually won the league that he was in. And he's not a bad goalkeeper. When you see the highlights and the comps on social media, you go, well, maybe there is something in it. And people have been saying, why are we looking at signing a Suzuki? Not to say that Suzuki's bad, but why are we looking at signing him when we've got a goalkeeper that's ready to be a number 2 that can eventually maybe challenge Andre Onana in the future? I thought he looked composed with the ball at his feet. A couple of crosses claimed as well. Didn't have any big saves to make, but I think in terms of, you're talking about the budget and how much we got to spend and net spend and player sales and this, that and the other, I think there's a real argument to be said there that Kovar could be a legitimate option to be the number 2. So certainly there, and a lot of these youth players are not going to play for United this season. Some of them will never play for Manchester United. Only a very, 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 very small percentage of them will ever get close. But a couple of them, you would say, hey, Kovar, definitely. And just for the pre-season, whilst we're trying to get a striker, let's have a look. Let's have a look at playing Hugel up front and see what happens, and Emeran as well. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, your opinions, your theories on what we should do next week and which players maybe have a bit more of a future at United. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and on to the next one. I'm out of here.